Three of South Africa's major laboratories have agreed to drop COVID-19 rapid antigen test prices. The Competition Commission announced the agreement between PathCare, Lancet and Ampath. It says the price reduction will remain in effect for 2 years. For more on this, I'm joined now by the Chief Economist at the SA Competition Commission, James Hodge. James, good morning and welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Let's start off with the pricing of these tests. This really has been a problem for a while now, haven't they?
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago we announced a drop in the PCR test, which is the sort of gold standard test which goes away to a lab to be analyzed. The rapid antigen test we identified during that process as potentially also problematic. So once we've finished those agreements, we launched an investigation into the rapid antigen test, which is used in different circumstances, but it's very fast. You get a result in 15 minutes. It can be used in areas remote from the lab, and it's starting to be used quite a lot, even in a home test kit form in other countries, in order to let people know whether they are positive or not, whether they're contagious. So this was about 350 Rand a month ago. And in response to the investigation, many of the labs brought it down to 250. But our investigation showed that 150 is probably the correct price for this, and anything above that would be excessive.
So, James, just for clarity then, the PCR tests now they still remain on 500 Rand, but these rapid antigens are now 150.
Correct. So there are different types of tests, and the rapid antigen is now at 150. And although we've signed with these three, we're continuing to investigate others that supply this test. So, for instance, the pharmacy group Dis-Chem, but also many of your smaller testing labs that consumers go to throughout the country. So we're continuing to investigate them and ask that they bring their price down to this level with immediate effect as well. Otherwise, we will pursue penalties.
Now, we do know, just to bring it back quickly, that the PCR tests, as we've now mentioned, are 500 Rand. From what you know, what exactly goes into these tests that they were initially so expensive, sitting at about 850?
So our investigation there showed that, when the pandemic broke, we actually granted an exemption to allow the Department of Health to negotiate a drop in the price. It was originally above 1,000 Rand, up to 1,400. But as the pandemic has continued, more companies have now started supplying these test kits. There's greater volume, so the price of those testing kits comes down. And also the volumes that the labs are processing means that they can be more efficient and drop their costs. So it's really those two factors that have meant over time the costs have decreased, and we never saw the price decrease. And that's why we moved swiftly to try and bring the price down. The same with the rapid antigen test. In the beginning, there were a few companies supplying this test kit. Now there's, I think, over 40 approved by SAHPRA in South Africa, and the cost is only a fraction of what it should have been previously.
Now, you've mentioned Dis-Chem, and you're pursuing an investigation into that company. Can you give us more details about that?
Well, they also run the rapid antigen test and currently charge 250. We don't think that's a justifiable price. From what we've seen in terms of the cost structure and why we reached a 150 level is we think that is more justifiable. So we're continuing to investigate. They haven't looked to settle with us yet. But we also want to look at the smaller laboratory groups that are doing testing stations in different provinces and even at places like the border. This is where rapid antigen tests can be very effective, and even in the workplace, as opposed to a PCR. It's just a quick test and maybe not as sensitive, but if people have symptoms, it can quickly tell you whether you have COVID.
What happens then, James, if the companies, these pathology labs, if they do not give you a compliance report, as you've stipulated, that you want a compliance report from them, just so you can see their financials, that they're actually sticking to this agreement? But what happens if you do not get these reports?
Well, then they would be in violation of the consent agreement and subject to penalties then by the courts. So, as you pointed out, what we've built into these agreements is that we can look every quarter at their costs and also whether they've complied with the pricing arrangements. But the costing is also important because that allows us to determine if costs have continued to fall in the future, that the price should actually drop even further below the 150. So the 150 is just a maximum. It's not a floor price.
And this, of course, should be a huge relief then for South Africans that need to get their tests, their COVID-19 tests done.
Absolutely. And whilst in the past, PCR has been the standard, I think we're seeing a big shift globally to much more frequent use of the rapid antigen test because of its speed, because of its ease of application. You don't need pathologists and labs, and because it's much cheaper. So I think we'll see the same shift in South Africa, and that's why we've moved quite rapidly to get this done before Christmas and whilst we're in the midst of the fourth wave. So hopefully this will bring a lot of relief for people.
And James, can we expect any more of these kind of investigations to continue from your side?
Yes, we have had quite long discussions with the Department of Health, and these were the immediate areas that they felt needed to be addressed. But we are looking at a more rapid response in the new year on other areas where they identify problems in the healthcare system, specifically related, obviously, to managing this pandemic. So I think we will see in the new year other investigations proceeding just to address where there are high prices and not justifiable prices.
That is the voice of James Hodge from the SA Competition Commission. Thank you so much for your time, James, this morning.
Thank you, Sefo.